Good afternoon. I'd like to reconvene the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Today is October 25th, 2022. The time is approximately 1:30 in the afternoon. At this time, I'd like to ask for acceptance of approved publication.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. The rules of public hearing shall be as such. Our staff will present each item for consideration with staff's recommendation. The board will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff when the presentation is finished. The applicant will next have the opportunity to make their presentation. The board will also have the opportunity to ask questions once the presentation is finished. Members of the public interested in speaking either for or against the project or issue, please fill out the yellow speaker form located in the lobby. Indicate the number, whether you're for or against it, and place it in the tray. And if the meeting's already started, please give it to Shaney. Shaney, please raise your hand. Thank you. Members of the public will be allowed to speak once per item. If you'd like to have your comments submitted to the record, please fill out the green speaker form located in the lobby. And again, either put it in the tray or give it to Shaney. Speakers should state their name and address clearly for the record, whether they're for or against it. Speakers will be given 3 minutes unless they're an official spokesperson of an HOA or a legal organization or a group, then you'll be given 6 minutes. If a board member has questions regarding the speaker's comments, an opportunity will be given once the speaker's time has expired. Speakers should limit their comments pertinent to the information regarding the agenda item under discussion. The clerk is required to obtain all documents, photographs, drawings, and anything that's presented to the board so we can have a proper and clear public record. So if you show it to us, please expect to leave it with the clerk. Once all speakers are heard, the applicant will be given an opportunity for a rebuttal if necessary. Once we close the public hearing, the matters will be in the hand of the commissioners for discussion, a recommendation, and or a motion. Following the motion, a second, the board will discussion, a vote will be taken. Commissioners who do not cast an objecting vote are considered to be vote in favor or support of the motion. On the quasi-judicial public hearing portion, while we welcome all individuals that are interested and want to speak, Florida law requires the board's direction on quasi-judicial actions be supported by competent, sustainable evidence presented to the board during the public hearing of the application. Competent, sustainable evidence is such evidence as reasonable in mind will be accepted and adequate and supported to conclusion. There must be factual base in the record to support an opinion testimony from both experts and non-expert witnesses. Has anyone here received any ex parte communication? Please submit it to the clerk.
None.
I have not.
None.
Okay, with that, first item on the agenda is item number 28. This is a District 4 item. We'll hear from staff first.
Hi, good afternoon. Annie Silloway, Senior Planner Development Services. I will be presenting 46A, Atlantic Drive Small Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment and Rezone. The applicant is requesting a small-scale future land use map amendment from mixed-use development to industrial and a rezone from C2 retail commercial to M1A very light industrial in order to develop the subject property as office warehouse. The subject property is currently has a mixed-use development future land use designation that is under FLU Policy 5.15, which allows a maximum net density of 30 dwelling unit per net buildable acre, and a maximum intensity of 0.60 floor area ratio for non-residential uses. The intent of the mixed development future land use designation is to provide appropriate locations for mixed-use development sites or multiple parcel areas to encourage flexible and creative design to protect established residential neighborhoods. The subject property is located behind parcels that are currently owned by the same property owner and have the same use of office warehouse. The only access to the subject property is through the above-mentioned parcels owned by the applicant. Based on the size of the subject property and adjacent uses, the subject property is not an adequate site for a mixed-use development. By changing the future land use from mixed-use development to industrial would allow a maximum FAR of 0.65 for the proposed site. Based on preliminary aerial photo and county wetland map analysis, there appears to be approximately .26 acres of wetlands on the subject property. At the time of site plan, if there are delineated wetlands on the site that will not be impacted, the applicant will be required to maintain a 15-foot minimum, 25-foot average wetland buffer. And a topographical survey showing wetland area will be required at the time of site plan review. Water services are through the City of Altamont Springs, and water capacity is available to serve the proposed development. An on-site septic system will be used for any future development of the site. And the applicant will be required to maintain a 25% open space requirement at the time of final site plan approval. And buffers will be determined as well at the time of final site plan review and will be in compliance with the Seminole County Land Development Code. Staff finds the proposed industrial future land use designation and M1A very light industrial zoning classification to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the Planning and Zoning Commission met on October 5th, 2022, and voted unanimously to recommend the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment and rezone. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from mixed-use development to industrial and a rezone from C2 retail commercial to M1A very light industrial for a proposed warehouse development on approximately 2.76 acres located northwest of Atlantic Drive and south US Highway 1792. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Thank you very much. Seeing none, we'll go to the applicant. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you like to speak to the board? Please give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Mark Potier, 1307 Nottingham Street, Orlando, Florida. Thank you for being here today. We agree and concur with staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the, wait, excuse me, sir. Questions from the board? Commissioner Constantine.
I don't know if this is better for the staff or you, Mark, but I see that you're going to get potable water from Altamont Springs. Looking at the 2 acres approximately that were the wetlands, but it is surrounded by a great deal more wetlands from other property, so it's really a larger than just 2 acres of wetlands in the immediate area. How far away is the sanitary sewer system, Altamont Springs sanitary sewer system, from your property?
I believe it runs down to on the south end of the property. It's a force main that runs on the south end off of Atlantic Drive.
But the county, the analysis says that it's not available. It seems to me if it's on the south end, it could be available.
We had some brief discussions with the utility company. We were going to continue to pursue our options, whether it stays on septic or force main, depending on the capacity. We're at the preliminary stages of that.
Yes.
Annie Siloway, Development Services. From my understanding, when I spoke to Environmental Services, they weren't going to make them connect to the sanitary sewer line. I guess it was too far away at that point, so they said they could go ahead and hook up to a septic system. But I don't know if Environmental Services is here to speak about that.
Ms. Ornberg is here.
Is there any additional staff person that can be addressing this?
While she's coming up, if I may, I've got a question along those same lines.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
So the question I have is, if the sewer is made available and capacity is there, are you willing to connect?
We had discussed that early on, and that was our initial intention. And then whenever there was, further discussion that it wasn't available, we were open to either way.
So if it is available and capacity exists, you would intend to connect?
That would be our intent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can you allow Ms. Warnberg behind you to speak at the podium, please? Thank you, sir.
Hi, Kim Ornberg, Environmental Services Director. I need to look, I think there was a I need to check on this, but I think there might have been a capacity issue or where it tied in, so I can follow up on that.
Just to finish my train of thought, and, I'm not trying to usurp this from anyone else. It's just that, I mean, I know that there is, as you know, there is capacity in the Altamont Springs sanitary sewer. So, it just concerns me that, I understand sometimes it's not available, but when it's close and it's available, I can't imagine why we would ever approve a septic tank system.
Right.
I mean, it just, eventually, we're going to have to pull them out and rebuild the whole things. I mean, it's either going to be us or the developer. I mean, I'm not saying right now, but I know it's going to happen. And if it's available, sanitary sewer is the way to go every single time. And I see the applicant is shaking his head yes.
I'll investigate that and confirm.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lockhart?
So just for the county attorney, I guess, or the county manager, someone, when we're looking at a rezone, are we looking at the specifics of sewer and water hookup during a rezone process?
Mr. Chipak?
The rezone would not, and planning staff, please correct me if I'm misstating. At the rezoning stage, it is looked at, but it is not the determining factor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
It is not the final determining factor. It could be a determining factor.
If you could speak into the microphone.
Sorry. I'm just saying it is not the determining factor, but it could be a determining factor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, let me make sure, because your first answer was it's not a determining factor, and now it's not the determining factor. So can I just be clear? Would that alone be a reason for denial of a rezone?
I would say specifically, no, it would not in and of itself. But again, if there were other factors leaning towards not rezoning, and this was an additional factor, it could be added in. But again, it could not be the sole determining factor, because again, we look at it later in the process.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Kim. Thank you, sir. This time we'll go to the public. Shani, you have any written requests? Thank you. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak for this item, either for or against? For or against? I'm going to close public input. Public input's closed. I'll leave it in the hands of the commissioners. This is a District 4. District Commissioner?
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from mixed-use development to industrial, and adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from C2 to M1A for approximately 2.76 acres located northwest of Atlantic Drive and south U.S. Highway 1792.
A second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. I'm not trying to stop this rezoning per se. I'm going to continue to elevate the issue, however, and should, when we have sanitary sewer near and available, that should take, we should really start pushing the idea of getting these folks hooked up and doing everything we possibly can to do it, because once again, I'm looking at not tomorrow, not next week or next month, but I'm looking at the future, and in the future, every single septic tank we're putting in eventually is going to have to be at some point replaced, and if we have it available, we need to do it. I think I'm not trying to, put any burden on this gentleman, I think, or any applicant. I think he knows that it would be make his property more valuable if he could get sanitary sewer to it. So as our staff is looking at it, we should make every opportunity avail itself to try to get sanitary sewer for that, for the wetlands around it, and for all of our water quality. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item number 29. The applicant did remove their application through the process, and I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Chipak, the acting county attorney, to go into further details. Mr. Chipak?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we received a letter yesterday from the applicant's agent that they are withdrawing the comprehensive plan text amendment. And right, so it was scheduled to be heard today, and there was a prior request for continuance to December 13th. That request for continuance is moot because the application is withdrawn. Since the application is withdrawn, there's nothing for you to act upon today.
So we don't need to make a motion. There's no
No.
discussion. It's now been officially removed from the agenda.
That is correct.
Okay, just want to be clear.
You are correct.
Okay. All right. Any comments? Thank you. We did have an add-on, item number 30, that was addressed earlier this morning. It was a proclamation on Mobility Week. That was the add-on from DOT. So now we go on to County Manager Report. Mr. Applegate?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, nothing further from what I reported on this morning.
Okay. Mr. Chipak, County Attorney's Report.
No county attorney report at this time.
Okay, we're going to go into District Commissioner's Report. District Commissioner number 4.
Wanted to report back on the conference that I attended last week, and we did have several staff members that attended, a couple from our planning department and several from our extension office. It was the Outside Collaborative that was held in partnership with the University of Florida, Thousand Friends of Florida, Nature Conservancy, Canaan and Associates. I know I'm going to forget some of them, and I don't have them all written down, so forgive me if I've forgotten your agency. But it was an organic, literally, collaborative of nonprofits, people in the industry who are involved in landscaping and land use in Central Florida to talk about what the future looks like for sustainable landscaping in our region. And it was very enlightening. I believe I was the only policymaker in attendance, although it was designed to include local governments. One of the big things that I learned is that this groundswell of the idea of sustainable landscaping is happening from the private sector first, which I love. None of the recommendations that they made or best practices that they discussed were presented in a way that they were asking government to mandate any of them. It was all from a perspective of best practices and what they see from their own areas of expertise. We don't have enough native landscaping nurseries in Central Florida or in Florida to even supply. If we were to mandate tomorrow that every incoming PUD had to have native landscaping, there would not be enough supply. So it is an opportunity for, I think, local government to lean in to the conversation that's being had. And they were very welcoming and actually are excited about the opportunity of perhaps partnering through the Florida Association of Counties and really being a resource to communities like ours who are interested in the concept of sustainable landscaping so that we do it in a way that is not cumbersome to the private sector, and that HOAs, when they take over these common areas in particular, are actually able to maintain and sustain. The Tavistock was one of the other major collaborative members, and Dr. Levy, who is also a professor at UCF and is very involved in Tavistock's development. One of the things that we discussed, and there were many people that I was able to talk with, it was a great opportunity to be able to talk to those in the field who are assisting local governments in creating policies that thread the needle with respect to the ability to enforce, number one, because that's a huge piece of it, and what is actually tenable from the developer side to be able to sell. So it's a very delicate balancing act, and one of the things that I learned is we don't know nearly as much as we think we know. So I will have more information to share with you on the potential collaboration with the Outside Collaborative. It was a time very well spent. I attended the Seminole High School Scrub J Club meeting last week. Great group of very passionate young people who have selected a mission that I think has merit. We, of course, already as a board have given direction that they have the ability to come and make a presentation to us. They're excited about that. The December meeting, I think, is the time that would be best for them to be able to come and do that. It would be less than 15 minutes. There would be 5 students. And I will tell you that they are going to potentially be making the ask to make the scrub jay the Seminole County bird. We don't have a state bird, but there's nothing that says we can't have a county bird. So they will be able to make that presentation to you, and they've certainly done it for Fish and Wildlife. They've done it for other cities in our county, and they're just a great group of students. It was awesome to spend time with them. Talked a little bit about lobbying Tallahassee and their experiences in Tallahassee, and it was just like what all of us experience, a little bit of sausage being made that they kind of got caught up in, and they're just a great group of students. I want to give a huge shout out to the best moderator of the Seminole Chamber Mayor's Update. That luncheon every year is something that we attend, and the mayors, of course, are a lot of fun to hear from and as they give reports about their cities. But I will say that Commissioner Herr, as the moderator, did an amazing job and really had the crowd in the palm of her hand. And I think the mayors actually had a lot of fun, too. So thank you, Commissioner Herr, for being such a great representative of this board.
You're welcome. Thank you for the thank you.
In that environment. The last thing, yesterday, as a member of the Central Florida Commission on Homelessness, I was down in downtown Orlando. The U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development was here, Secretary Fudge, along with several other folks from D.C., and there was a roundtable of city, county, private sector folks talking about homelessness and the really great work that we're doing with our continuum of care here in Seminole and in the region, Seminole, Orange, and Osceola. And you'll remember at one point in time, we had talked about disbanding and pulling out and doing our own COC. And, boy, am I glad we made the decision to stay in as a group, because what the Secretary acknowledged and recognized yesterday is that our work together collaboratively has made us one of the most accomplished COCs in the nation. And so we thought we were just there to have this, nice little conversation and share ideas, and then out of nowhere there was a check for $8.4 million presented to our COC, specifically focused on homelessness efforts for teens in our community. So that's teens who age out of the foster system, those who are homeless. So needed to have that coordination of care, and we actually had providers in the room with tears in their eyes, because this is a game changer for our region to be able to actually help coordinate the services for those most precarious homeless in our community. So really exciting things coming on that, and many folks in our team are already paying very close attention to how Seminole County is going to be a part of that split. So that's all I have. I know it's a lot. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you,
Great,
District.
great report. May I inquire with Commissioner Lockhart?
Sure.
Is it your sense that the event you attended down in Orange County, that those folks have the ability to give a smaller presentation to our board?
Absolutely.
Is that something that you would suggest and recommend with our staff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we have an opportunity to learn. I would consider them at this point, this group, the subject matter experts, in each of the categories that are necessary to bring about whatever effective change we want to make. It's not a government decision. It's not a private sector decision. It is the whole group work. That's why it's called outside collaborative. It's going to require all of us working together. So yes, I think they would jump at the opportunity to have a presentation.
So if it is your desire to consider requesting staff to look into that, I certainly would support that.
Okay.
If that's something that you feels
Thank you.
wise.
I do, and I appreciate that support very much, because I think we all, including our own team, could learn immensely from, they've been doing this effectively for about 3 years, so it's very new in its approach, but they've seen great success, and it continues to grow each year. So I think it's, honestly, I think it's worthy of some time in a work session format, because the tone of the organization and the people who created it really is that there's no hierarchy. It's not an us versus them, or we're better than you. I mean, the folks who own the landscaping businesses who are talking about how they're going to re-educate their employees about what's a weed and what's not a weed, because what's a native plant to someone who may have moved here from another country, who is trained in a traditional way of, mow, blow, and go, that's going to have to change.
Right.
But the folks who are doing the landscaping had just as much voice in the conversation as the folks who had multiple letters, the alphabet soup behind their name. So I would suggest that anything we do with this organization not be in an us down format, that it be literally, physically all at the same level.
Yeah, I would enjoy that, and I think it's beneficial. I had an opportunity to have a long discussion with the previous CEO of Tavistock, and that was a big focus on all of their projects, was to conserve water, conserve the cost of maintenance with the landscaping, and I think that's a lot of just some of the benefits, and I think we would all be well served to understand that.
Yeah, great, thank you for that support.
Thank you.
If there's a majority of the board that would be interested, I think it would be helpful for staff to hear that.
Chairman, I would be interested in it. I'd also, in order to make it time really well spent, maybe we get even more collaborative and invite the cities to attend. Certainly open it up to them for attendance, and if they wanted to post it, however they have to post it to make it public, then that would be great. But I think maybe it becomes a Seminole County-wide collaborative, because all of the vendors serve across jurisdictional lines.
Very good point.
Good
All right, District
point.
3?
So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to make sure that there's
I believe there's
direction.
consensus to do
I'm going
that.
to bring it to them, yeah.
Well, okay, because in the past, I've had to ask staff to go back and watch videos because there hasn't been
Mr. Applegate,
Do you have direction?
do you have,
I do not have to watch the video.
do you have to watch
Okay,
the tape, or
thank
do you
you.
understand it?
I'm just trying
Or
to
do you
save
want to?
time. I'm trying
Thank
to
you, Ms.
save time in the
Applegate.
end.
Okay.
And who do we want to charge with reaching out to the cities? Mr. Applegate?
Mr. Applegate,
That's-
do you
that's
believe you
his
have
job.
instructions?
I certainly do, and I'll take the responsibility to reach out to the cities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Applegate.
Thank you.
District 3?
And all I was going to say is I think that's wonderful, because the previous 2 years, I have either attended or in 1 year spoke, and this is a great organization. And this is something that, as they continue to mature, we get more people involved. You have people from all sides. I think this would be great. So I'm excited about it. In the past, it was, what are you guys doing, as opposed to now, what can we all do together? So again, I have I have attended and spoke at these organizations, not this year, but I think that's great, Commissioner, and I wholeheartedly agree that we should do it. Earlier this month, I did a tour of the Wekiva Parkway with DOT and their headquarters. If any of you have not seen their headquarters on International Drive, it's amazing. They have televisions that would fit this entire room, and they can show you any...
International Parkway.
DOT, yes, did I say? What it is?
International Drive.
Yeah, I said International Parkway, excuse me.
Two different
And-
roads.
And two different roads, and in Lake Mary. And they can identify vehicle concerns, accidents, anywhere on 75, 95, Turnpike, I-4. It's just an amazing thing. But at the same time, I did want to let you know that the Wekiva Parkway is progressing rapidly, and now the latest on time, it's still going to be in 2023, and hopefully the middle of 2023. So that's exciting times. I mentioned to you at the last meeting that I was going to be speaking to the Smoky Mountain Association in North Carolina and Tennessee via Zoom, along with Mr. Jay Exum. They wanted to know how our HOAs had gotten involved in our urban bear ordinance and Bearwise, and also what we did as an organization, as a county. And they were extremely excited about some of the things we did. But one of the things that I thought was very strange, we all know that part of our enforcement is that our citizens are not allowed to feed bears. Tennessee and North Carolina, they have no such law. So, in those states, you can feed bears, which causes part of the problem. But they were very excited about, what we had done. We sent them all the information, and I know that Mr. Exum was going to follow up because, as you recall, his HOA was the first one that took it on in this, with our Bearwise ordinance. Earlier this month also, along with the League of Women Voters, they asked me to speak to Barry University's Law, Environmental, and Energy concerning Seminole Forever. They were extremely excited about the opportunity to share that with other areas and counties, and so it was a very, very enlightening and exciting meeting with those law students at Barry. Speaking of which, Gerlin, which as many of you know has drafted this with the staff and also the attorney's office, is a graduate of Barry University. So that was kind of ironic there. I wanted to congratulate Commissioner DeLore on his part. I know that Commissioner Zimbauer and I both attended, but the Pathways to Care soup bowl, Commissioner DeLore was in an apron serving some of the soup, but it was wonderful, and of course it was for a great organization, Pathway to Care.
Good soup.
Yeah, it was great. All of them were great soups.
Well, of course, there were a lot of good soups, but I don't know that yours was the best.
I didn't make it. I just served it.
Earlier this month also, I was at the National Association of Regional Councils Board retreat for a day in Kansas City, but there was a great deal of discussion on collaborative efforts both on opioid abuse, regionalism, emergency preparedness, and they were quite interested in what happened here with Ian, and so it was a very good meeting. I also wanted to congratulate Commissioner Her wry sense of humor kept everybody on point at the Seminole Regional Chamber Mayor's update. So congratulations, Commissioner Her. Also, I wanted to say that Commissioner Her, Commissioner DeLore, and I all attended the firefighter Connor Maxwell Fernandez's celebration of life. Terrible, terrible circumstance, but a beautiful ceremony. And I just want to congratulate the firefighters, all that attended, and the people that were there. It was not something that anybody would ever want to be participant of. I know that Mr. Applegate and Ms. Johnson were both there too, but it was quite a moving ceremony and quite a beautiful ceremony. This weekend, I think we all know that the Sanford, Orlando, and I'll leave it to you. I won't say it. I'll let you do it, Commissioner Zimbauer.
Well, if y'all do all mine, then I'm...
No.
There's
On
a
the
plan.
later November, later in November, on the 3rd, the Central Florida Hotel and Lodging, including our own organization, will be doing a luncheon with the Public Servant of the Year. I think we've all talked about in the past that both the Greek Fest is going to be the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Hollerback's Oktoberfest is also, because it's been postponed, going to be the 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Novemberfest.
And Novemberfest now, yes. Oktoberfest in November. And the Taste of Altamont at Crane's Roost will be on the 7th. And the FX will be having a board meeting, but in addition to their board meeting on the 10th, they will also be doing a chili contest to raise money for those that were affected by Ian, and I get the privilege of being one of the judges. So I won't be eating anything else that day. And on the 11th, Annunciation will be having their fall festival coming back again, which is always wonderful. And Mr. Chairman, that is it.
Thank you. District 5?
Note to the children that live in my house, candied apples will be at Annunciation on November 11th. Those are my favorite thing ever.
And funnel cake.
None of that. Candied apples, red. On a serious note, the Port Authority did turn over $400,000 as was budgeted, and they did hand me a check for presentation. And I didn't trust myself with it, so I turned it over immediately to staff, and it is already in trusted hands. They do still have 99.75% occupancy, and very, very little on the receivables list. That .25 that's not occupied is one office within an office space that really no one wants. So for all intents and purposes, they're 100% occupied. Rescue Outreach Mission, I am extremely happy to report moved from bronze to platinum on GuideStar. GuideStar is the system that people research before making a donation to a 501c3 charitable organization, and so that is, you typically don't see folks move from bronze to platinum. You see a progression over time, but they have certainly done yeoman's work at getting there. Year-to-date permanently housed is 149 people compared to last year's full year, which was 70. There have been several grants received, and luncheon sponsorships to date will more than cover the cost of the luncheon already. So we are light years ahead of where we were. Commissioner Zimbauer, I didn't comment on your offer to revise the agreement this morning, but I will take it under consideration. I, at this point, am not convinced the agreement needs to be revised, but the agreement is being managed differently from the other agreements that look very similar. This isn't an agreement issue from my perspective, but worth pulling the parties together to evaluate where we go with that.
Is that direction you're asking, or consensus you're asking for, Commissioner?
No, I don't think we need consensus. I think I just need to pull the parties together, given what we heard today, and determine what our next steps are without our involvement, quite honestly. I don't think we need our involvement at this point, but we may. If we do,
Okay.
I'll bring it back.
Great.
I am working on something with FDOT as well, and that we have a situation in District 5 where the roundabouts that are the surface roads underneath the highway, that it was formerly known as 46, direct tractor trailers into a 27-house neighborhood for U-turns, and it's fairly horrible. So FDOT has been working with us diligently to figure out what the resolution to this is. There will be a community meeting that will be held on November 1st from 4:30 to 7:30. FDOT will be proposing alternatives. They've now agreed to rework the road in some form or fashion within the limitations of right-of-way. They are now weekly presenting the options to me in preparation for the presentation to the community. They have improved each week that they've presented them. I will, at some point, John, I would request that staff is there to look at them and weigh in, give opinion around what we think the best solution is. The challenge is that we build muscle memory with the traffic pattern where you go halfway around a roundabout and halfway around a roundabout and halfway around a roundabout to traverse 46. And then all of a sudden you got to go 3/4 of the way around, go under the highway, make a hard right to stay on 46. So people are ending up in the neighborhood with 18-wheelers, if you can imagine that. It's pretty horrible. So resolution on the way. I'd like to thank Commissioner Lockhart for looking up the word rye and showing me the definition so that I know that I could laugh about it. So that's a good thing. Married to an English major, but not one. So thank you for that compliment, Lee. And that's it.
I was wondering if it was R-Y.
You were spelling it wrong.
It's W-R-Y.
And Commissioner,
You spell your W-R-E.
if I could tell you, they did tell me, the DOT, while I was there, about your work with them on this. And as they were showing me across the way the property that they're talking about donating to Seminole County right on the river, we saw 3 trucks go into that property just then and there. So we've got to do something about that.
It's bad. I have been out there on weekends sitting there. I just pull over and sit by the road and count them, and I've been sitting in the neighborhood, and it's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
It was considered, the consideration was that the resolution would come when the road opened up, but that is not happening.
No.
So this has taken way too long from my perspective.
District 2?
Thank you. First and foremost, for those, I think probably everybody up here realizes, the 417 connector road to the airport study has been kicked off by the CFX. There'll be community meetings notified to the community as things move along, but it's now kicked off, so they'll be looking at the best path to connect 417 into the Sanford International Airport. As that continues, I will try to keep everybody up to date on a schedule with that. Of course, this weekend is the Sanford-Orlando Airport Air Show. There'll be Saturday and Sunday, so you will see a lot of aircraft, not only jet-type aircraft, but prop-type aircraft flying all around the eastern part of the county. So good event, good economic development event. It's been very successful for the last 3 years, looking for a bigger show, in fact, this year. As many of you know, State Road 46 now is open. I want to thank FDOT for monitoring that on a close basis. I also want to take a minute and thank the school board and the superintendent of Seminole County Schools. It came to my attention a week or so ago that we have children that actually reside in Volusia County that attend Seminole County schools. And with the road closed, these parents were being forced to drive their children all the way around either 95 to 50 and back up in, or back up around the other way through Volusia County, 1792, to get their children to the eastern school zones. They were successful in communicating with my office and made arrangements to stage 3 vans early in the morning, 3 vans in the evening to pick up and drop off children, and the school board made those trips instead of the parents having to transport those children. So I want to thank the school board and the superintendent for taking care of that. They also have revised new bus stops for those who remain flooded in the eastern corridor as well as anywhere in the county. Those are all available on the Seminole County Public School website. I also want to give a shout out to our EOC folks. I never would have thought that dumpsters would be so popular, but usually people don't want dumpsters, but thank Alan and his team for making sure that we've had dumpsters out at Mullet Lake Park, Rest Haven Road, Jungle Road, and those areas that remain flooded. It's been a huge asset in helping those people out in my district, and I know they've done that in other parts of the county as well, so thank you for that. Also want to thank them for ensuring that the laundry and shower trailer remains out in Geneva, so that those folks that have been displaced and are trying to get back in their homes or work on their homes to get back on their feet have a place to do their laundry as well as shower. Big shout out also to FEMA, who's been on the ground in my district going door to door, as well as has staged at Danville and other places to help the community as those needs come to bear, as well as FEMA being set up at Seminole State College, and the college, collaborating with the county to make that happen over in the automotive department. It's been a huge asset. A lot of people have really said it's great to go to one place and be able to deal with FEMA, SBA, and any other entity for the needs that they have, so that's been a great. thing. Also, for those people that have inquired, there's been a lot of inquiries, and maybe some of you all have had it as well. It's probably more prevalent in my district because of the Lake Harney and the river area, is the FEMA repurchase or purchase program on properties. For those that are interested, there is a video that is on the county website that talks about that and gives the details for any of those people interested in FEMA programs and how that whole process would work. So that is available as well. Also want to let folks know well testing is continuing. This is a big issue in my district because of being in the rural area and we have wells. The health department is testing wells currently. You can call us at the EOC at 407-665-5102 for any questions related to in recovery or any assets that can come to bear either from the county, state, or federal, and we'll make sure we get folks headed in the right direction. So it's important that those wells that were flooded be tested. I think the number we received this morning was something around 22% of those that were flooded and tested have shown positive for E. coli and other bacteria that is harmful. They also tell you how you can treat those wells and clean those wells up, which is a huge asset. Also want to, again, thank Jimmy Beach and his whole crew and our stormwater folks who I know are working in everybody's district, but in the rural area, we've had, quite a bit of washouts on some roads and so forth, and they have helped some of the private landowners understand what they can and can't do, as well as we've been able to repair some roads temporarily to ensure public safety of EMS personnel being able to get down there. So I want to thank Mr. Applegate, Mr. Chipak, who helped coordinate that as well with our fire department to ensure. And we also want to make sure that people know on private roadways and drainage, you can apply through FEMA. If you have an HOA, each and every person who has access to a private road should make that application with a full description of what the damage is to their roadway, coordinate with your neighbors, make sure they're all making the claim to FEMA, and then FEMA will organize as a group whatever assets they can bring to bear and whatever finances they can bring to bear for those private roads. If there's any questions, they can reach out to my office, and we have all the contacts for FEMA, and we'll head those people in the right direction. I also want to congratulate Commissioner Constantine for being the Public Servant of the Year Award for CFHLA. Congratulations. It should be a lifetime achievement. How many years is it now? 30?
A lot.
32?
44.
44?
44?
Or 34? 44.
Wow.
How old are you?
Stop.
Well, in 2 weeks, I'll be 70.
I was asking her.
No, you were not asking her.
November the 6th, actually, correct?
But
You wear it well.
congratulations, Commissioner, well-deserved. I know that, in your years, there's the good, the bad, the ugly, and you hope that at the end of the day, most of it's good, and I think that can be well stated for Commissioner Constantine. So congratulations and good luck. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Under my report, I'd like to ask for a resolution of appreciation for Ms. June Wilson for her services on the Committee for Aging for the 2 terms ending December 31st, 2022. I'd like to make a motion for that.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor of the motion, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Now, I did send yesterday, because we got this yesterday as well, an email to each one of you regarding an application for the Amanda Dragon for law enforcement representative from the Seminole Sheriff's Office to serve on the Community on Aging to fulfill first term vacancy ending December 31st, 2022, and the second term starting January 1, 2023 for a 3-year term. Her resume is included. We sent that out to you all yesterday under an email. When we got it, we forwarded it to you all. I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. I'd also like to commend our staff for going out and thanking different groups of people. I know we've been doing that with environmental services. So Kim Weinberg, Mr. Applegate, Tricia Johnson, and I know it's not over. I know there's a lot of other groups we're going to, so I want to congratulate you on that. Also, Mr. Applegate, I know that Commissioner Constantine talked about it a little bit on Pathways to Care. You were the keynote speaker, and you did a phenomenal job talking about the needy and the homeless. You gave a lot of real-life examples that you and your family experienced about how you participated in helping, not just here in Seminole County, but in other areas of the country. And I want to congratulate you on the heartfelt talk that you gave everyone. It really made a big difference, so congratulations on that. Obviously, what you talked about, the things that you've all done, made everyone sit back and reflect on things that could be done. So thank you for that. Also, it was hinted that Commissioner Constantine will be having a birthday this November the 6th. I just want to say thank you and congratulations. Thank you for all your hard work.
Happy birthday.
Congratulations and happy birthday this November the 6th.
Thank you very much, Bob.
That's the end of my report. We have no future agenda item requests. Now we'll go to public comments on non-agenda items. Shani, do you have any written requests?
We do, sir. We have 3. The first one is Claudia Glisson.
Can you spell that, please?
I can.
Glisson.
Thank you.
If you can just give us your name and address for the record.
465 Forest Lake Drive, Altamont Springs, Florida, 32714.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Seminole County Commissioners and visitors. My subject is the proposed Forest Lake Drive sidewalk project. According to the postcard sent out from the Seminole County Public Works Department to the residents along this section of Forest Lake Drive, funding for this project comes from 2014 Seminole County 1-cent infrastructure sales tax. The reason given for putting a sidewalk along Forest Lake Drive was supposedly for the safety of students who walk to Teague Middle School or Bear Lake Elementary School. However, students attending Teague Middle School would have to be bused per state law because it is more than 2 miles from Forest Lake Drive to the school. Forest Lake Den Eds. Students have to walk via Pearl Lake Causeway to Teague Middle School, which is over 2 miles away. Students attending Bear Lake Elementary School would have to walk along State Road 436, a 6-lane highway. By Florida State Statute 1006.23, this is considered hazardous walking conditions, and elementary students must be bused along this highway. Estimated spending of more than $500,000 for the sidewalk, less than a quarter of a mile long, is another reason why I believe the 1-cent sales tax should not be used for constructing a sidewalk along Forest Lake Drive. This money could better be spent elsewhere on student safety. Thank you, Claudia Glisson, and my email is proposedsidewalk@outlook.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any comments?
I do believe that Mr. Dredge may want to have a comment here, which I would love to hear.
Mr. Dredge?
It keeps rolling.
Good afternoon. For the record, John Judge, Public Works Director. Yes, it is one of our projects for sidewalk along Forest Lake Drive. As our staff, they do like a workshop, or they send a card to inform the public if they have any comment or any input on that project. And I think that was last week or week before, or that project they sent.
So,
Commissioner Constantine?
thank you. So this is an ongoing project. You've had did you have a community meeting,
Right, that is,
Zoom, I believe?
yes, it's Zoom, yes.
Okay. And, you've taken the concerns of the citizens, and have you made any final determinations of the plan and the design of this sidewalk?
No, we don't have a final on the, when we put it out to bid, but what my staff telling me is there's not any opposition from that, on that project.
Well, if I can continue a series of questions. Well, Mr. Dredge, there is obviously a person that has a problem. Earlier, I had, and I don't know if there's anyone else, but I'm just earlier in discussions with my staff, I did receive a phone call from Ms. Gleason. I called you once. We haven't connected yet, but I will still. But I also know that she has, if I'm not mistaken, you've reached out to try to help with some foliage that is in her yard. Is that not correct, or am I mistaken in that?
Probably she could, but I'm not aware of it. She could probably call some of the staff, and I can look into it, what's the issue, and follow up on it.
Now that you know that she's here, I just appreciate if you would get her name, number, and try to coordinate and see if we can solve some of her concerns.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Constantine. Thank you, Mr. Dredge. Commissioner Lockhart?
Just for clarification, I saw others out there nodding their heads behind Mr. Dredge talking. Could you raise your hand if you're also here for the Forest Lake Drive sidewalk issue? You were just nodding in empathy. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dredge.
Katrina Shaddix. Maybe I can try to do 6 minutes.
Oh, I don't need 6 minutes. Surprise. Katrina Shaddix, 1011 Seneca Oaks Trail, Geneva, Florida, 32732. And since y'all are going to be talking to DOT a lot, can you ask them to invest some money in wildlife overpasses and underpasses that are desperately needed, especially along Wakaiva and Markham Woods Road, where we have a lot of bear hits? Second, we have good news. We raised a lot of money with the Black Bear Romp 5K in the Wakaiva State Forest this past Saturday, and we raised enough to pay for a semi-truck full of 235 bear-proof trash cans to be delivered to Seminole County residents. So we will have those to the residents around November or beginning of December. And a few weeks ago, when I went to Washington, D.C., I went to ask for some help and some funding for polluted Lake Jessup that is continuously plagued with blue-green algal blooms and the victim of overzealous development. And while I was there happened to be a demonstration at EPA headquarters to demand clean water and to stop the chemical poisoning of our children and families and firefighters. And while I went there, I thought it was going to be just about water issues, but the head of the firefighters union, of the entire United States, and of the union in New York, talked about a huge problem that I wasn't aware of, and I was hoping maybe the county can help our firefighters. Their turnout uniforms that they use have PFAS chemicals in them, which cause cancer. And we have a lot of firefighters whose lifespan is cut short, not only because of the work that they're already doing, but the chemical-laden turnout uniforms are also making them sick. And when I was at the 5K, the Black Bear Romp 5K, a retired firefighter, Frank Reiki, does our layout for the race. And I asked him about it. I'm like, hey, I was in D.C. recently, and I heard firefighters talking about how toxic their turnout gear is. I go, is this true? He goes, yeah. And I go, why isn't anyone doing anything? He goes, no one talks about it but the firefighters. So now that we know this is an issue and we know that firefighters are dying, is there any way that the county can fund new uniforms for our firefighters that don't have the PFAS chemicals in it? And just as how it's connected, my cousin was the youngest appointed battalion chief for Seminole County firefighters. So, that hits home with me because he was subjected to these chemicals, and none of us knew this. So hopefully, if it's one thing that we can do is get them new uniforms. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Applegate, would you at a later date report back to us on this?
Absolutely.
Because I know some things are actually being done on a routine basis.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beach?
Nancy Harmon.
Good afternoon. Happy birthday. I won't be there to say it to you. Nancy Harmon, 752 Pioneer Way, Geneva, Florida. 6 minutes, please. Geneva Citizens Association. We talked a little bit about flooding, and I know this storm was huge, and I know nobody expected the amount of water that has drenched us. But one of the things in Geneva that I'd like to talk about, and I've had pictures because I was called out to start going down Osceola and look at the roads and look at the ditches that are county-owned ditches as well as private-owned ditches. And the ditches that we have on Osceola Road, and I'm sure in other places in Geneva, probably in other places, I know we talk about it all the time on the west side, but we never talk about it on the Geneva side. And I would really like to have the road crews get out there and get those ditches clean, because we do have flooding. We were having flooding before Ian hit. And I've got pictures of it on Osceola Road. I've got pictures of where the buses were coming by and the water was spraying because the water is standing on the road. And it was just a regular rainstorm. So I want to bring that up because I think the other thing that we've done is we've had a lot of studies done about flooding and water and whatnot. I'd like to know, what are we doing and what is a plan that we can do now that we see what has happened, recognizing, okay, they want to say 500, but every 10 years we're getting wiped out. We've got every 7 years people are getting wiped out. This wipeout is not going to stop, but I think if we could start looking at these stormwater systems, where they're dumping out to, because I was just looking at another project and the stormwater management systems, a lot of them are keyed to dump out into the creeks and into the streams and into the lakes and into the river. So we can't necessarily undo what we've got, but maybe when we're looking at development or we're looking at purchasing lands to try to find places where we can kind of get water to go so it doesn't go into these places that we don't want it to go to, we could consider that as part of the penny sales, the roadworks, whatever you want. But as a basis of this, Ian, take a look at what has happened and what we've learned from it and what we can do to fix what we have learned from it. I know we've learned something. Commissioner Lockhart, I was so glad you attended that committee on the natural lands, or the not natural lands, but native plants and whatnot, because, we've been up here, citizens have been up here, pounding and whining and begging that we could get more of that into the developments. I would really appreciate when you have the workshops or whatever that you ensure that people that are on the environmental groups, our soil and water folks can attend and be a part of it so that we can look at how we can ensure it gets incorporated, the right things get incorporated into our code, which we're updating currently. I also would like to ask what the status is on the county manager position. And I want to give some kudos to Bob Delary, because we had a road washout in Geneva, and my neighbors contacted me because of a good friend that lives off that road. I happened to be in communication with Bob regarding his dad, and he reached out and said, hey, is there anything you all need out there? And I showed him that road, and within an hour, there were people out there from the county looking at the county's ditch that had crashed in off of Bass Boulevard. And the people were stuck. They couldn't get out unless they found another way. So I really appreciate that.
So let me tell you the secret behind that. I just emailed Brian Applegate.
Thank you, Brian. You're the man.
But you want a new county manager.
Yeah, I know, I
No, well, you keep saying you don't want to do it. If you want to do it, I'm voting for you. Okay? You got my vote. And I owe Commissioner Herr a kudo from some time ago with regards to work she's been doing at Midway. And I have to say, when you all talk about her dry humor and whatnot, I think that's one of the things that I like the most about her, is even in the most serious conversation, the most heated situation between people, she tends to be able to pull something out of her bag of statements that kind of brings things down a level, and I appreciate that about her. I even see it sometimes with you all. I appreciate the work you're doing, and I'm concerned a lot about this flooding in Geneva and trying to figure out what we can learn. I'm really excited that people might be more willing to have weeds in their yard and less fertilizer on their yard, recognizing the native plants and weeds are good. We can mow them and we can enjoy them. Have a good weekend. And go Dogs.
Mr. Applegate, something you'd like to add?
Against
Two
Florida.
things. On the county manager search, we're working with Renee Narlock and her firm. They're putting together the final touches and edits to the information brochure, if you will. We hope to have the search start very shortly and hopefully have an interview process sometime in the late part of January, if I'm right. And then I got a text from Chief Kinley, who is obviously listening in. His statement is, we have the safest gear you can buy, the least amount of PFAS on the market.
AS or
I'll follow up with
OS?
him to get more information on that.
OS or AS?
He had PFAS, but I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
it's
over.
two different products.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I will follow up to get a written memo to you.
We've also put in exhaust systems to handle that as well.
I'm sorry.
We've also put exhaust systems in to capture that exhaust as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Jane, who's next? No one else? Anyone else in the audience, since that was the last written request, that'd like to address the board at this time? I'm going to close public input. Public input's now closed. Mr. Applegate, do you have any closing comments?
No, sir.
Mr. Chipak?
No, sir.
Board members? Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Yep.